Welcome along to another episode of the Make Life Work podcast with me, Cy Jobling. On this podcast, I speak to people from around the tech scene about how they try to find a balance with work, life, and any side projects they have time for. From sharing their stories, we hope it helps others find their own balance and maybe enjoy some of the things we talk about along the way. This week, I've invited back a previous guest of the show, Naomi White. I spoke to Naomi in season 2 back in January, right before the global pandemic hit and threw out any plans we all had. Naomi has plenty to tell us about how she's reacted to lockdown, the volatile market of brand design, and how she's managed to keep busy over the past 9 months. Let's get into it. Welcome back, Naomi. How are you doing?
I am good under the circumstances.
Under the weird, difficult circumstances.
Yeah, I'm just calling it the weirdness. It's just the weirdness all the time, and asking people how they're doing in the weird.
And it's just very strange. So, yeah, I mean, 2020 hasn't really been the year we want to remember, I don't think.
Not really. I mean, we spoke in the end of January, didn't we? And I listened back to our chat just yesterday, and it's hilarious of how, pumped we both are for a new year and all of the things that we're going to do. And the list that I made that was endless, I had a look back at that as well, and that's quite comical. I said I'd be happy maybe if I checked 2 of those things off. I don't even think I've checked 0.5 of those things off. However, it's not all bad. It's just been a bit of a change, hasn't it? So it's kind of us learning how to pivot from that, I think.
I think pivot has been the word of the year, quite frankly, up there with a few others, but everyone has had to try and adjust their lifestyle and their working habits and all this sort of stuff. How have you coped in, working and personal circumstances?
It's been really strange, to be honest. We talked last time about how great it was that I had realigned my business to work with social good businesses and lots of charities and non-profits. Obviously, when a pandemic hits, they're the first people who curb all of their spend, rightly so. And because of that, it's had a direct knock-on effect with my studio's work. So we've gone from being super busy in January, February to everyone pausing or postponing or cancelling entirely. So it's been a really strange year in that I still haven't got a new job in since then. And it's been the first year in 10 years. We spoke about last time, I've never ever had any time out. I've worked client to client, multiple clients, but client to client the entire time. So to go from having that consistent work all the time and being over busy all the time to having nothing was quite a shock to the system, to say the least. So yeah, for me, it's been quite a big pivot into working out what do I do with that time? How do I make the most of it? Obviously, after that initial panic of, oh God, are we going to be okay financially? Fortunately, we as a married couple, I can look to James for help there, and his work did the opposite. So his work really increased in terms of working with everything that was doing well because of the pandemic. So obviously entertainment, music, but also alcohol brands. So he has done extremely well during this time, which luckily, so as a family, we've been okay and we've been able to survive financially. And also, obviously, some of the government support has helped also. So, yeah, it's been a very strange year. So to pivot from being super, at the highest point I think I have been with my business in terms of we're doing good, we're working with the people we want to, we've realigned everything, we're pushing work out that we're proud of, and working with the types of people that I want to work with internally as well as client-wise, to then have nothing. So yeah, it was, as I say, a shock to the system, but it's been an interesting time, and I'm still, obviously I haven't always felt positive about it, but I am now. I'm sure we'll get into why.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's struggled at times through this year. And obviously you've been quite lucky to have a family unit that can keep you going financially, but also mentally, right? Because I think a lot of people have really just struggled to just keep positive generally. It's not been an easy year for that.
100%.
And I think we've both mentioned over the year, like mental well-being is really important. How have you kind of helped yourself in that situation with your partner as well?
It's been pretty tough. I mean, I think we've been fortunate enough in when one of us has been down, the other one has been up.
Right.
However, we did have a couple of week period, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing, but a couple of weeks where we both, hit a bit of a low. And when we both hit a low, that is really tough. However, we're fortunate enough in, we both work in similar fields, and we both, as we talked about last time, we have a lot of conversation around idea generation, where we're headed personally, where our studios are headed, what we're doing. So we've used that more than anything. So that and a lot of walks.
Wow. Helps though, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the full lockdown was pretty tough with, an hour walk every day. And, we were pretty sick of the area. Like, we are so fortunate in the area that we live in. We have the most beautiful countryside, moorland, the seaside really close by. Like, we can walk the most beautiful walks. But even then, 12, 16 weeks of it was a bit, I'm kind of sick of this same scenery. But, we'll continue to talk and continue to ask each other how we are mentally as well, and just be as open as we can about that. And, the same with other members of our family. It's hard for James, his family being in Canada. So we just made sure we had, plenty of video chats, and we missed them a lot. And they were supposed to come over this year as well, which unfortunately obviously got cancelled. And just not being able to see family members and not knowing when we could see them next as well was a bit tough. But we just, in the grand scheme of things, were so happy that we made it into the same country last August. So we were actually together for this rather than being stuck apart, which would have been dreadful mentally.
Yeah, I've seen a few. I mean, I've got it in my family already. Like my mother and her partner, they were separated pretty much for a lot of lockdown because he was in Manchester with his family, she was down here with me, and it really challenged them. They're together now because they've had that window to get back together again. But now, as we record this, we're on the cusp of probably another lockdown coming, and now everyone's anxiety is going, whoa, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, and it's so sad. I mean, everyone's situations have been so different, and everyone's, dealt with it in different ways, and also had completely different experiences work-wise as well. One of my good friends is a GP, and her experience throughout it is so different to my own. But even to my mum's, my mum is seen as a key worker because she works in wholesale food. Right. So, that had to keep on going, and she manages, a market full of, multiple wholesalers. So, her going to work every day, she had, unfortunately, my stepdad, we believe, had coronavirus. And she stayed at home for 2 weeks, as suggested, after, living with my stepdad. But strangely, she, bless her, was like, I couldn't do this. I can't do this for 2 weeks. I can't be in the house and do nothing and go nowhere. Like, I'm going insane. And to hear that come from her and me at this point, I think I'd been home for about 16, 17 weeks because I actually fell ill right before the lockdown. So I had about 10 days before the official lockdown of not being well with coronavirus symptoms. I was in that place where I was due to have a test. However, 24 hours lapsed. I rang them, and by that point they just changed it to if you have symptoms, then just self-isolate. Right. So I'd already been self-isolating for about 10 days before the official lockdown, and it just seemed endless. And we'll never know if it was coronavirus. And even my stepdad, he got rushed into hospital, was put on the coronavirus ward. However, they didn't test him. And the services within the time have been worrying as well, and it's just the anxiety around not knowing. That's the thing. And not knowing if what you're feeling is this virus that we're all anxious about passing on, or and how our own systems are going to deal with it, obviously, and if we're going to be okay, and the worry of others, but then also just what's next. And so, yeah, the shift has just been huge, I think, for every single one of us in so many different ways. And, you know, we've all needed different things throughout it.
Indeed. You mentioned earlier, before we started recording, how you're working in the same building as your partner. So how have you kind of adjusted to that? Did you have a period where you were stuck at home? What happened in that space?
Yeah, so I mean, full lockdown, obviously we stayed at home the entire time and kind of built a desk that we had in the garage. And James actually worked on the dining room table for about 3 or 4 months before he realized, oh my words, yeah, I can't do this anymore. It's not quite working very well. I mean, I don't know how his back didn't give in, but because it was on a bench. But yeah, I mean, we were okay. I think that was the hardest time for us. As you know, like we spoke last time, we'd only just got the office last November. So we had just shifted into, you know, changing our situation to working outside of the home every day because we were both in one place instead of traveling between the UK and Canada all the time. So that was like, we'd finally found a routine. We'd finally found a place to work well and separate work from life a bit more. So going back to that we hadn't even been there 3 months. So to go back to that, be forcibly put back to working from home was a bit tough. And yeah, I won't lie, you know, it wasn't easy the whole time. We did have ups and downs. And obviously me being used to being super busy all the time, I had one project that I was finishing in the first 6 weeks. But then after that, there was nothing. So it was like, okay, what do I do now?
Crazy. So how are you coping now? Because obviously we're sort of easing at the moment, and then we don't know what's going to happen next, but signs are we probably will have another lockdown soon. You know, how are you planning for that at the moment?
Yeah, signs aren't good, and we're in a local restrictions at the moment up in Newcastle in the northeast already. Although they don't, you know, pubs being open till 10, it's not. You know, it's not enough. But yeah, it looks like, you know, the numbers are obviously heading in a very bad direction again. And we did all, you know, think that it may happen. I think we all put ourselves in that bubble of, I don't want that to happen, so I'm not going to think about that. And I can't think about that right now. But yeah, the reality is obviously we have to look after one another, and whatever we need to do that, we will. I would hope the majority of us. So yeah, I think in terms of us, we still have the office space that we work in together, and we live together. So for as long as we can, we'll try and get into that office space because it's, you know, we can avoid people there. And still be on our own. But even, you know, if we do go full lockdown again and have to work from home, we've done it now, so we know what to expect. And I think we know we probably have learned a lot from it in terms of how to manage it mental health wise and what we definitely need throughout that time. I think we talked last time as well about James and I, you know, it's amazing. We're finally back at the gym, you know, all the time. And of course we didn't have that. And I think that was one of the hardest things as well, was the lack of physical exercise. It took its toll a bit. And, you know, both of James is slightly better than me as self-motivation of working out in the house. I was full of it. Yeah, we're going to do yoga every day, and, you know, did it a few times at the beginning, and then it traipsed off to nothing. So I think being through it once, it'll make it slightly easier to do it again, to know what to expect.
It's good that you've got the opportunity to look back, though, and learn from that. I think a lot of people, you know, especially when you're struggling, you don't want to look back in those times. But if you can get into a habit of going, well, actually, that was the signal to say, we can't do that again, then you've got an opportunity. If we need to do it, to use it, Absolutely. Then we can. And it sounds like you've kind of used that to your advantage, you know, going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've learned all the things we wouldn't do.
Exactly. I mean, I've been through it. I was working in this dining room with my wife on the other end of the table. We were both doing our meetings, taking turns with all the video calls. And it's nice to an extent because I actually get to spend time with her. But then we also have work mode, work me, which is not the same as personal me at home. And it's an insight. I must be honest, because my wife's a teacher, and seeing her be teacher mode I tell her, turn it off when you come back home, because I don't like that. It's not a fun, it's not approachable. It's not what I really married. But I know she's an amazing teacher. So I'm like, I love to watch her do it full flight and then switch off immediately after a video call. Do you get to see that with James? Like when you got any client call or anything like that, do you sort of go, oh, I've not seen that side of you before?
With James, no, because James, for those people who know James, they know that the type of work that he does and the kind of clients that he works for, he can be his absolute self, which is amazing. You know, I mean, when you look at his work, it's all 80s inspired and fun and colorful and silly, in his words sometimes. And, you know, he is just genuinely him all the time. I think he definitely sees it in me, you know, the shift. And also when we work on, we touched on it slightly last time, but this business that we're creating together, he definitely sees it there, because I get into work mode and I don't think he likes that much.
It's probably a good time to go into that, actually. You know, you mentioned Starcade with James previously. Where's that at, and what's been going on? Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, so slight shift away from what we spoke about last time, was that James was going to concentrate on the storytelling and build a comic to kind of introduce the business. As part of the pivot earlier in the year, we realized, wow, that would be a really luxurious amount of time to spend on something that isn't directly part of the business. It's, you know, world building, which maybe we can do that world building in a much better and more focused way, i.e. get on with the business and what it is. So luckily now I can actually share with you what it is. So if you go to starcade.com, it's now, you know, a landing page where you can sign up and get a little bit more information about what it is. But we've been building a card game, a physical card game.
Nice.
For the last 3 or 4 years, on and off, very just a personal project. But the lovely thing is it's based upon characters that James came up with. Well, a lot of them he came up with from the age of 11. So he's been drawing for a very long time, and he used to draw fighters with his friends in pencil when they were at school, and they used to roll dice to fight each other.
Wow.
So we had some discussions early in our relationship about how do we make people care about these characters? How do we bring them back to life 33 years later?
That's crazy.
Because there's so much great, interesting content there, really fun content. So it ended up coming full circle back to, well, you know, you used to roll these dice. Why don't we try making a game? Which sounds insane for two people who aren't games designers. However, luckily we have another friend called Lucas Gardner, based in Nova Scotia, Canada, who is a gamer through and through, but also works in quality assurance for a games company.
Wow.
And he was thrilled at the thought of us doing this, offered his help, and he has written and architected the entire game. And we've been building upon it and play testing different prototypes over the years. Obviously, none of us working on it full time. So when the pandemic hit and my work ceased, we made the call to, okay, I'm going to put pretty much 100% of my time on building this business and actually turning it into a business rather than us just tinkering with this game. So we are going to be pushing it out on Kickstarter next year, Q1, at the end of Q1 next year. Ooh. 2021. The games ecosystem on Kickstarter is crazy. It's brilliant. But there's so much to be done. I mean, people kind of expect gamification around the Kickstarter, not just within it, and not, you know, gamification around the business and the marketing of. So there's a lot to be done. And we have a little small team of us three and our good friend, Jack, who currently works for Adobe. She's amazing, and she's helping us on community and marketing also. So it's super exciting and it's completely different. And as usual, I'm learning a whole new industry and a new sort of community. And just taking day by day, but we're really enjoying working on it again properly, full time.
Well, I guess you found the opportunity to do it, right? With your professional, typical work slowing down.
Yeah.
You got an opportunity to jump on it. And I've had a quick look at the website. It looks amazing. Illustrations are fab, you know. So this is a proper video game, not like a card game like you mentioned with the dice earlier. This is a full-on proper...
No, it is a card game. Yeah, so it's
right.
a physical game. It's got boards, but it is a tabletop game rather than a video game. Maybe one day we might turn to video games in the future. Who knows? It's been mentioned multiple times, and James and I just cover our faces and are like, "That's far too much work."
Exactly.
And neither of us have skills in that. Whereas, you know, James has the artistic skills, I have the UI and layout and design skills, and Lucas has the ability to write an amazing game.
No.
I'm Jack on marketing. So it's like, let's just use our own skills to our advantage rather than, X in the future. But who knows, we're really excited about it. We kind of hope, it's the first business that we've built together. So we hope that it can turn into something in future. We've got loads and loads of ideas for future editions. Yeah, so that's super exciting.
It is. And I like the fact it's actually real world cardboard and actual tangible things, because I think people obsess over digital, and there is a world outside of these computer games, right? And it takes you back to those 80s and 90s eras that James actually came up with this as well. There's a massive swing back to retro lifestyle anyway, so tap into that.
Yeah, and I think, more than ever, we've kind of realised that during the pandemic as well, is that, our screen time has potentially increased for some of us, but we also we get reminded that, need to get off the screen, and we need to do something physical. And also family time has become so much more important, and quality family time, isn't always, the 2 or 4 of you, like separating off in different rooms and watching whatever we want, or playing or gaming, we all do want those dinners around the table, or a game now and again, or something like that. And it really it made us think about it a lot more, and prioritize it basically for more than one reason. But the big one being, this is a really, really good time to be thinking about this stuff, and the games market is doing extremely well, especially the physical games market at the moment.
That's wonderful. And so we're looking at early next year when this comes live and Kickstarter?
Yeah, so the plan currently is it'll probably be early April. So, you need to make sure that people have money in the bank after January and February low times. However, maybe that won't happen this year, because everyone will potentially either have no money or all the money because they won't spend at Christmas.
It could go either way though, right? I mean, like you say, the industry is going to struggle, I think, for this Christmas anyway. However, like you say, people want that special time with their families. I personally have been trying to find that, like, through lockdown. It's been nice to be around the kids a lot more, but we're still all sitting on our screens every night, and you're like, well, this is not how it should be. This is not the atomic family of dads and mums around the table. So any chance where you can promote that, I think you really should hammer it home. We'll get the details on the show notes so people can sign up, and we'll see what happens next April, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, another follow-up.
Yeah, it's fine. Talking of other side projects, last time we talked about a potential new magazine project you had going on with Rose.
We did.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and what came of it, if anything?
Yeah. So, we did talk about that. And so what was said was Rose and I were planning a magazine that was built around supporting a community within our industry that we were really passionate about. We still hope to do it. Unfortunately, we didn't do it because the pandemic hit. Rose was pregnant at the time. She's since bared child. So her priorities kind of shifted. And also, I think the panic of the pandemic setting in was a bit like, it's probably not the best time to launch this. So we've kind of put it on the back burner for a little while. And Rose is on maternity until next April. So we'll most likely pick it up again next year and hopefully push it out next summer. But in the meantime, obviously, I still had the itch of, I've got to put something out. And as mentioned, it was my studio's 10-year anniversary in the summer. So I put out a different little zine that is called Unfulfilled, which is a place for axed logo marks that deserve to be seen. So as we all know, there are always concepts that fall to the wayside, that don't make it through. But it's not necessarily that they are bad concepts or that they are bad marks, logo marks. Sometimes they're just not quite right for the job, or something else is better and for it. So yeah, so I decided to put together basically a curation of all of our axed logo marks from the last few years. And it was fun. It was just a very nice cathartic thing to put together, because so many of these things just stay on our server and never see the light of day in any way, because also we don't usually share that stuff behind the scenes, because for a client, that's not, we don't want to open our doors to say, oh, this is the whole process, this is what didn't make it, at the time of that launch. That would be a terrible thing to do for them. But to create it for ourselves and just put it together in a little zine and share it with our friends and peers in the industry, it was it's been really nice and cathartic. So yeah, that's available it's the one product in my now shop on brandedbynaomi.com.
Nice. Again, show notes, we'll put that in there. I was looking through, actually. I've not got it yet. And actually, I want to get it now. I've seen it. Because it reminds me of all the little logos that I created when I used to do design work. They just sit there doing nothing. And it is your time, right? And so you are spending a lot of effort and thoughts into this stuff, and they just gather dust. But I think I did the same recently. I went into my Dropbox. I found some old projects that were just sitting around doing nothing. Oh, wow, I forgot about that. I forgot about a brand I did for an insurance company many, many years ago. I had a little cartoon character, and yeah, that took a lot of time. Yeah. I'm glad you've uncovered these, and it must feel nice for you to kind of go, I made that, and it's a real world thing.
It does. Yeah, it does, because also, one of the biggest things that I've realized as well is all of our work the majority of our work being digital. Anything that is printed stays with the client. Yeah. Unless, we get a few for our own portfolio or whatever else, but we don't usually, have a lot of physical product around us in terms of what we build for others. So it's really nice to have a curation of that stuff that is all ours, but that's done in a way where, we can choose the stock ourselves, we can choose our own budget, and we can spend a little bit of money there. So it was really nice to, take my time with it during the pandemic. Yeah. Choose some nice stock, work with the printers, go back and forth on some different tests. We did a rose gold foil on the front. There's a gold foil inside.
That looks amazing.
It's lovely, yeah. And it's just been really, really nice. And it's not about making money at all. I will never make the money back on it, and I'm charging hardly anything for it because it's just covering costs. It's more about fulfillment of our own work, because as we know, sometimes, especially in branding, there's a lot of times when a client may not push out a brand very soon after we've created it. With some clients, I've waited a year, others a year and a half, because internally they have prioritized other things. So they might be using the logo mark, for example. They might have switched that out straight away, but the rest of the brand or the website or the public facing brand hasn't changed. So that's kind of that can feel quite demoralizing at times, and it can feel quite saddening, because you've put months into all of this work and no one can see it.
No.
So for us, it was, partly fulfillment and partly, the frustration and the weirdness of the pandemic, going, right, okay, what can we get fulfillment out of?
It's funny, isn't it? A lot of designers have done the same. They've taken the opportunity to go back to print, go back to their traditional old school skills. Mike Hintz, who was on the podcast in the first series, he's just got out a paintbrush and started doing a load of portraits of celebrities. Amazing. And I was like, these are awesome. I'm going to buy some. They're great. But he's just enjoyed going back into the garage, getting out a canvas, painting some celebrity that's quite trendy. Obviously, you can tap into that. But the satisfaction of making something, I think he said, I like the fact I can hold this thing I made rather than not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel the same, like yourself, I have servers just full. I mean, I have full archives of my entire career. back to 2004 of all of the work, that's been all of the projects that I've done, but it's never shared. It's never, half, some of it I might not want to share. But, some of it, it's all there. But it's all digital, and some of it, has aged. Some of it is great in that it hasn't. But, what do we do with that? And it's an interesting concept to think about. And also being married to James is an interesting one. I'm someone who looks to the future all the time, the present and the future, and James always looks to the past. I mean, you can see it in his work. And behind me here, you can see his full archive of his work since he was a child. So his mum and dad kept his first drawing that he ever made, which was Superman holding a giant pumpkin. That he drew on the back of a maths paper at school.
Of course.
So he has everything, and everything's archived, and he does a lot with that, and that is what inspires him to do the work that he's doing presently. So for someone who always looks to the next thing, it was nice to actually pause and take a look back for once and think, actually, instead of making something new again for the sake of making something new, how about I use some of the things that have been?
And it's good. Do you think brands need to rethink how they push their brands out as well? Like you say, that there's a weird sort of unspoken rule about when you're creating a brand, and you've got all this sort of secrecy and carefulness, I guess, around it as well, how you promote it. Do you think there's an opportunity to kind of shift that attitude a little bit as you work in the industry as well?
I think that there definitely is, especially when it comes to the SMEs and medium-sized companies. The larger companies who work with the likes of big agencies, the big agencies are a massive part of the launch, and they work on that together, and they have a strategy around how they're going to launch it. Unfortunately, the types of clients that I work with, we don't ever really have that budget. I would love to get to that point where we can offer that strategy and we can work together on it. But sometimes it literally does just come down to an internal political decision. One of the brands that we talked about last time that I was working on, Eridus, they still haven't shared. Everything's done. Everything was done in February, but they still haven't pushed it out live. And it is to do with internal shifts in partnerships and all sorts of things internally that they want to do and push out before the rebrand, which is absolutely fair enough, and it is their decision. However, obviously, it could be, from our point of view, it only would have helped bolster all of the things that they are now pushing out, and all of the news they're pushing out. It only would have helped to have had that out earlier. However, at the same time, yes, it wouldn't have been the best thing to launch at the beginning of lockdown, because it wouldn't have got any sort of attention. Now we're getting to the stage where it's like, well, when is the good time? Because especially looking like we're going into a second lockdown, it's difficult. It's when is the right time? It never really is. So yes, I would love to work. I do think that some companies do it amazingly well, and everything is pushed out at exactly the same time at a certain, and they work with their agency to do that, and they do it brilliantly. But I think for some others, it would be awesome if we could do a little bit more of that.
Nice to experiment when you can as well. We talked a lot about work and side projects. So we talk a little bit about your well-being and what you kind of do in your downtime. Do you have anything where you kind of just turn off and just, you can enjoy? You mentioned walking earlier. Is there anything else that you kind of do?
Yeah, I was listening to one of your other guests the other day and laughing because, I've been playing a bit of Animal Crossing.
Oh, nice.
A little bit of Animal Crossing, that's always been good. Walking, trying to go out on my bike, but not achieving that very often. I'm still quite a nervous cyclist, which is hilarious because I was actually supposed to be riding across Africa in a month, and that unfortunately has been postponed, if not cancelled as well, because of this year. On my resolution list I looked back at, one of the items was get the fittest you have ever been, and obviously I think the opposite has happened this year, where that's definitely not happened. And generally well-being, I have been having a lot of baths.
Oh, very nice. Nice and clean then.
Hell of a lot of baths. Terrible for the environment. That's the environment which I do care about sincerely. But yeah, a bath a day, and spending a lot of time just thinking time and trying to relax, and either listening to a podcast, sitting in silence, or scrolling, as we do, for inspiration and just joy, and seeing my family when I can. And the opportunities that we have had to see them. It's meant the world to be able to spend a little bit of time with my mum or my nana. So not a lot, not a great deal to switch off, to be honest. I think I've just been trying. Another thing that came up on one of your other episodes was the not being too hard on yourself, and not giving yourself a hard time if you're not being super productive that day. And I think I've learned that the hard way. I really can't, otherwise I'm just really miserable. So yeah, just genuinely walking, talking a lot to James and other friends and family, seeing them when we can, really.
I mean, you're coming across as quite calm and composed now, and you don't seem unhappy. You're just taking each day as it comes.
Yeah, it's been a journey. Yeah, taking each day as it comes, exactly that. I mean, I also did a mural in the office. That was fun. Yeah, I decided to I'll just put some paint on the walls and give it some color, which I'm yet to share, but I will share that soon. And yeah, that was nice. And, I really do enjoy looking for different ways to be creative and improve myself creatively. So another thing that I'm looking to do at the minute is, we talked about landscape photography, of which I've done none, because every time I've been out to beautiful places for walks, I've actually just wanted to take it in, take a breath.
That's good.
And not use it as I'm gonna photograph this. And when I have taken photographs when I've been out, I haven't shared any of them. I've just done it for myself, which has been really nice. But another thing that I'm looking at doing at the moment is potentially a bit of an art series, which mixes my love of photography and using a light box and using some physical shapes and things to take some really interesting photography and have a play with that. So, much like you were saying about, the designer that, he started painting in his garage. I'm going to start just playing with physical laser cut shape and light and color in my garage, and start photographing some of that and seeing what comes out of it, what falls out. Who knows, might be absolutely terrible. I'll never share it, but it's just something for myself. So yeah, that will be nice. And then another little side project I've been working on is for a friend who is creating a completely new business. She used to be a teacher. She's entirely pivoted to creating her own skincare brand. Ooh. So it is called Minimum, and it will soon be up on thisisminimum.com. And I've been helping her. She is a very, very good friend of mine. We went to school together and have been close ever since. And she is a chemist. She's always been a bit frustrated with the beauty market and how we're pushed things. We're working on that at the moment, which is super exciting. Getting to work on all that lovely stuff like packaging and marketing for something that is just a bit of a treat for your skin, but it's made with the minimum of products. The most simple thing is for everyone, male, female, non-binary, young, old. It doesn't matter who you are. We've tested it quite far and wide, and it's been going down really well. So we're in hopefully looking to launch November this year. So that's been really, really nice to be able to work with a friend, no pressure. I've been doing it in my usual way of giving her presentations, yet she's just wonderful. And Naomi, I totally trust you, and this is all brilliant. And yes to everything, which is wonderful, and obviously completely different to my normal day to day. And it's just been lovely, and to be able to just speak with her, but speak with her with a bit of purpose rather than just speaking in, as we do as friends and thinking, oh, woe is the world. How are we going to get through? It's been nice to put our minds to something together. So that's been really, really enjoyable.
Loads of side projects, it sounds like, Naomi. You're keeping yourself very busy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think side projects have just taken over a bit while the studio work has been quiet. and definitely a person who has to put their mind to something. I can't do nothing, especially when it was full lockdown and we were at home all the time. I couldn't not do anything with that. I had to do something. And for others, you know, it would be entirely the opposite of, you know, I don't feel like I'm able to do something and I need to just, you know, look after myself for a while, and that's absolutely fine. As I say, we're all different and we've all coped with it in different ways. But for me, it was just I needed to keep busy. So I've definitely been doing that.
That's good.
And then we do have a studio project starting in the next couple of weeks. So, you know, things will pick up again rapidly. So it's been nice to take a little bit of time out. Even if that's been forced under horrible circumstances, we've been able to take advantage of it in a way.
You're being positive. So I guess actually being with all that in mind, this podcast is all about finding balance, and everyone's different. They've all got their own ways of doing this. What sort of tricks do you use to kind of compartmentalize all the different aspects of your life and make sure you're not overloading and give yourself a bit of balance around all these things?
I don't think I'm particularly good at it.
I don't think anyone thinks they are good at it.
I really don't, because I do really, really enjoy putting my mind to projects and to things. So for me, I do definitely realise every time that I switch off, if I put Animal Crossing on or I spend 2 hours watching a show, I do realise, oh, this has helped. And it's freed my mind to be able to think about work and projects in a better light, in a better way. So I'm constantly, honestly, I'm quite constantly battling with myself to remind myself to give myself more out time. And James does the same, because he also really enjoys putting himself into projects and work and side projects and his own art. I mean, being an artist as well, you never really switch off. So he's been playing a lot of Zelda. So I think it's just been like, you know, forcibly giving yourself times of the day, which is most evenings for us, to try and at least, you know, cut off at a certain point and be like, right, now is switch off time.
It's good. So there's no silver bullet. It's just being aware. I think at least you've got each other to help each other as well.
Yeah, and remind each other that we do need that time out. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think we're up on time now. But as always, been an absolute pleasure catching up again with you again.
It's been really, really lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
That's always good. And I don't want to keep just bringing you back in every series, but it'd be lovely to catch up again maybe next year when we've got some of these projects that should be in the market, and you can tell us a bit about how you got on with those as well.
Yeah, definitely. Love to talk to you, especially after Starcade's out there, and we see how much that shifts things again. But no, I'd love to talk again. It's been a pleasure.
Well, excellent. And as always, we will put all the details on the website and show notes. Thanks for coming along, Naomi, and take care of yourself. You're doing well, so keep it up.
And you.
Thanks to Naomi for joining me on this episode of the Make Life Work podcast. We hope you learned a few things about how to cope through the lockdown, but equally, some of the fascinating side projects Naomi has spent time working on over the past few months. All the details and links will be in the show notes at makelifeworkpodcast.com, along with all the podcast archives and some nice little extras for you to check out too. Make sure you follow us on all the socials too. Make Life Work Pod on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. And if you're enjoying this, leave us a review in Apple, Amazon or Google Podcasts. Join me next time, when I'll be inviting along another friend from around the tech scene to talk about how they try to find a balance with life, work and side projects on the Make Life Work podcast. Speak to you then.